All right, thank you, Nick. And with that, I think we'll get started with the meeting tonight. We have Board Finance Committee meeting. It's January 21st, 2025. And it's the Finance Committee to continue work on the fiscal year 2026 budget. And this evening, we will be hearing from Evan Howard on the maintenance of effort budget presentation. But prior to that, our first agenda topic was briefly just a follow-up on school budget presentations that we saw last week. I did not have anything specific that I wanted to call out or discuss on that. I just wanted to provide an open opportunity for the committee to discuss anything, any takeaways we had or thoughts or anything that we may at this point want to discuss, and we'll have plenty of time over the course of the next 6 or 8 weeks to revisit that. But while it was more top of mind, just wanted to give it a chance to talk through. Yeah, that's it.
I guess I just take a moment to reiterate how thoughtful those presentations were and how the asks, which were limited, were all very reasonable, very data-driven, and very student-centered. And I appreciated that from the outset. And knowing we don't know where that's all going to end up, I felt really good about where we were starting. And so I want to say thank you again to Heidi and to that entire administrative team, including you, Evan, who put all that information together, because I think it was a really solid ground to begin a challenging path on.
Yeah. Thanks, Hudson. I just will quickly second that, especially the data piece and the focus on the students. It was really thought through really well by each of the presenters and kind of put measurements on what the reason for what they needed. So it was great to see that. So, yeah.
And for the committee, it was great, but anyone listening could have also learned a lot about the schools. Because I just came on, learned a lot about the individual schools and the culture and personalities of the schools. So
Yeah,
it was a
excellent.
good encapsulation of the district.
Great point. All right, Heidi, I don't know, did you have anything, no reason for it? We're just giving you a chance if you want to say anything on that, or otherwise we're good. The team nailed it.
And do go forward and hear the Evan's presentation. I'm pretty excited for him. He's worked really, really hard on this, and go for it.
Got it, Evan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Just want to say it was really exciting going through this process to see, year over year where we spend our money, where just working with the directors and everyone else, this is a comprehensive effort that is not just myself. So I want to acknowledge all the directors and support that I've had along the way in creating this budget, because being relatively new, there's a lot of things that I had to learn. And yeah, I'm excited to present to you. So without further ado, just a quick MOE definition. Stands for maintenance of effort. It's the level of spending required to maintain the current level of staffing, programming, and services. So for fiscal year 2025, we had a budget of just over $54 million, approaching $55 million, where I have calculated the 2026 budget is just over $60 million. And I will go into my numbers and my findings there, but that's about a 10.2% increase over last year. The budget without debt service is close to $54 million, and that's a $1.7 million increase over the prior year. This budget does not include adult education, and the debt service calculation includes bond and capital lease payments. If we see, this is my roll up here of just half of the expenses for the maintenance of effort budget. You can see there's a column for budget 2025 and a proposed 2026. I've calculated the change in the percentages and then the percentage of the entire budget. I would say some notable cost increases just off the bat here, and I'll go into them more, would be the paid family medical leave, which is close to the bottom of your screen. It is captured in the unemployment costs and paid family medical leave line. We went from an expense of $20,000 last year to what I anticipate to be 1.6, close to $1.7 million in paid family medical leave. That is a calculation that happens by taking someone's salary and multiplying it by 1.05, and that represents half a percentage point. The agreement that the way that I've budgeted is for employees and the employer to split the 1% fee that'll be associated with the paid family medical leave expenses. This budget is also inclusive of the anticipated teacher salary scale, which represented a 4.5% increase. The ed techs, bus aides, support staff, groundskeepers, custodians, drivers and mechanics, all those folks. This maintenance of effort budget does try to encapsulate the salary increases for the support staff contract that was just signed a few months ago. In addition, I tried to, as best as possible for my budgeting purposes, make sure to align each teacher, each support staff member with the appropriate step and their next step along the salary scale so that we could have an accurate picture of salary information, as well as then calculating benefits from that number. In addition to salaries, there are other expenses that the district obviously is required to fund. So that's everything from property insurance to printing, copying, and supplies and motor fuel for transportation. One big notable increase is the insurance for property and liability. In having discussions with the broker at Cross Insurance, who we've been utilizing for the past 5 years, he told me to conservatively budget a 20% increase, and that's just because of the way that natural disasters and other such current events are shaping the insurance industry. I tried to be conservative when budgeting, and with the hope that if we go high and the rates come in low, then we can see that as a savings. But we don't want to be surprised by anything that we find come up throughout the year. So as I mentioned before, the proposed budget is $5.5 million above where we were last year. And that's due to mostly salary, benefits, and paid family medical leave expenses driving those numbers. The 2026 budget is overstated for teacher salaries and health insurance. This maintenance of effort budget does not account for $250,000 in teacher turnover or retirements. As I said before, I want to be conservative in my budgeting so that we don't find ourselves in a place where we have to come back to the towns to raise more funds. The assumed increase for administrators, support staff, and supervisors was a 4% increase. And per the principals and assistant principals contract, the 26 increase is 4.75%. In addition, the professional development line for them does increase to allow for 12 credits at the UMaine graduate rate, which is $6,684 per principal. And for transparency purposes, the main PERS, which is the retirement system rate for teachers that was used in calculations, was 4.45%. I want to also talk about the school allocation process. So back in October, principals were provided with their school allocations, and this is something that provides flexibility in budgeting items within each school allocation. The allocation is driven so that schools have expenditures for supplies, books, minor equipment, printing, and professional development, and are distributed on a grade level and calculated by the October 1st student count. The 2026 allocation that went out to the schools was $627,000, which was an increase of only $6,000 over fiscal year 2025. As mentioned, that was driven by enrollment, and we've seen the enrollment dip slightly over the past year, which is why the increase is material. And the cost per pupil amount changed by $20 as seen in this next, oh, I meant to put in the allocation document, which you will all find in your packets listed in there. I believe section 4. Some notable cost increases, contracted services went up by close to $200,000, which represents a 20% increase. Some services from Honeywell, Train, as well as some costs associated with the district-wide security initiative are driving those costs. As I mentioned before, property and liability assurance are driving about $41,000 in an increase. Software licenses continue to go up per the contracts we have with these various companies. And then most importantly, the unemployment costs and paid family medical leave represent close to $1.7 million. There are, oh, yep. Up to you. You tell me what works best.
Top 10 lines.
Based on the salaries. Believe so, yep. Let me grab a copy of that book just so I know reference.
Don't have it memorized?
It's not any other, right?
Correct.
All the ones that started from.
No, the costs are not driven by insurance or any other benefits. It's all from salaries.
The math, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with that take. Because if it's, I mean, the total responsibility is 1% of a total salary budget of, that was in here somewhere, sorry. And then then ours is half of that, right?
Looking at unemployment and PFML.
Oh, so
Yeah.
maybe I didn't drag my zero all the way.
Yeah,
All right. That's,
You like that?
we like that a lot. My apologies.
no. We don't have this, but that seems really, if our total, if total salary line is 30 million rough, I mean, I'm just speaking in really rough numbers. But if it's 30 million and it's total, that'd make it total of 300,000. And we'd be responsible for half of that, so 150,000.
I think that's 5%.
I'll have to go back and check my math. Okay, that's great news though. If we can shave off $1 million right off the bat, then we're in really good shape. Absolutely. Decreases. Please do. Well, we already decreased by $100,000 for our added district placements. Oh, yeah.
Just had a question, kind of circling back about the Honeywell.
Yep.
Just with the contracted services, the proposal that we heard for the position, is that considered here or that's without that?
That's without that
Okay.
for the moment.
Okay, awesome. So we could be, what's that? Gotcha.
Yep, and then I just increased it.
Before we start tinkering.
Right. So, but what I mean is we could potentially be saving in this aspect with that position that okay, that's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So our out of district placements are going down by about 33%, just based on the forecasting we've conducted. We budgeted last year for $300,000 and we're only going to be budgeting $200,000 for this coming year for the out of district placements. The food service Interfund transfer is also decreasing by 50%. We had budgeted $300,000 last year, and in discussions with our food service director, we believe we can keep that at $150,000 based on better fiscal management. District-wide purchasing of equipment is also decreasing by about 10%. We replaced some copiers and printers this year and anticipate to not have to do as much this coming year. In addition, reduction in transportation for our out-of-district placements will drop the budget by 51%, close to 52%. And finally, insurance was budgeted high. I know that could be considered a high or a notable cost increase, but I believe that they will come in below the 20% for property liability and the 8% I used for budgeting health insurance. In addition, our debt service is going down, and this is due to paying off the lower interest payments. Excuse me, let me go back here. Lower interest payments as the principals have decreased over time. So the high school bond interest has dropped by close to $60,000. The roofing bond interest is decreased by $2,400. And then the bond for the Mount Ararat Middle School envelope project has dropped by $28,000.
And if you don't know this offhand, that is A-okay, because I don't remember. I can't recall how much longer do each of the three bonds have?
I believe the roofing bond is set to expire in 2028. The high school bond, I believe, 2030. I could be wrong on that one. And then I'm not positive about the Mount Ararat Middle School.
All good. Just trying to get my brain.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's newer.
The roofing bond is the first one to expire.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yep. And then this last slide, or these last two slides, are just a recap of the chart I used to calculate costs, so that we could all just be on the same page as the questions come up. Yes, and that was calculated based on, like I said, 4.45% for teachers, and administrators calculate or contribute 12.2% of their paycheck to main retirement. Yeah, it's main PERS. Yeah, and I believe they set that amount each year. Nope.
So is it best, do you guys want to go through these couple sheets here with additional questions maybe, or? It feels like we're at an okay point for that. Does that make,
Yeah, it's great.
or did you ask everything you wanted, or? I'm curious if you could speak a little bit to the secretary support salary line. And it's probably something we're aware of. I'm just not remembering right now what's driving that.
So when I looked at this, that's a good question, because this was one of the things that I kept coming back to, in that I didn't want to account or not account for open positions that we didn't have filled. In this line includes the paraprofessionals, as it says, also secretaries, but we do have some of those open positions. So I calculated that number of 1.42 million by pretty much placing a paraprofessional at the median, or the average of what it could be.
Yep.
So it could be a little bit high there. But I tried to be conservative when budgeting that amount.
Those are empty positions that we're actively trying to fill.
Some of them are, most of them are filled positions. There's probably a handful of about 4 to 5 that are unfilled. And I think some variance could be.
We have some
attributed to those
intention of filling them.
Correct. Yep.
If it's the para positions, remember Amy is shifting her budget around, so she's going to remove some of those para positions and apply them to the things based on her needs and her budget.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
And thanks for flagging that for me because I will go back and check those numbers because the 36.3% increase does seem high to me as well.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry. Just above that, the administrators and supervisors, we're, at 4.75% increase for that bracket of employee, broadly speaking, but with a 10% raise. And I was just curious, were there a couple positions we had to do catch up with? And is that what got us to the 10% there?
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that and look at my
Not an-
spreadsheet.
Not an
figure it
urgent
out.
question, just curious, trying
Yep.
to look at the numbers. You're good.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, is that the line that's this one right here?
Yeah.
Is that accounting for the professional development addition that was the 6,500 or something?
That should not, that should be in course reimbursement.
And,
Okay,
and that wouldn't be another 5%, I don't think. It wouldn't be 5% would be like $150,000, $160,000. So again, it's all good. I'm just curious where the extra is. And I'm sure there's a good reason for it, to be clear.
Yeah, and I'll continue to refine these numbers as we go through.
um. Okay, no, sorry. I'm reading these and then remembering things you've said and piecing it together slowly. And this, I don't know if you said this on the way through, I was just paying attention to something else, but noted that there's this 40% increase on the capital maintenance line, which I think has come from discussions with facilities committee. So just calling that out, not in that it's an issue way, just that's a significant investment that we are looking to potentially make.
That's correct, yep.
Question for Heidi. The decrease in out-of-district placements, is that just us doing a better job of matching students with service here in the district, or some students aging out, or?
So, out of district placements are kind of like a very moving target. And so what I believe when Amy and I looked at her budget, I said, I said, I don't think you need 300,000 in there because you have enough carryover in your local entitlement. And so we decreased that. I said, and just keep the 200,000 in here because you have enough in there. Now, it could mean that some kids have moved out because the year before Amy took over at that end of that year, we had enough money for 6 new students if we needed to put them out of district. Within 2 months, we filled those slots with 6 new students. So those students could have moved, some kids could have graduated, but really that's kind of what it is. But I think we're comfortable with the local entitlement to keep it where it's at. Yep.
One quick question, the substitute teacher salary line, is this is our projected like 100% filled need?
That's correct,
versus
yeah.
what we are actually able to fill, so
That's correct.
great.
I feel like I may be asking a redundant question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. For was it additional and overtime? Was that gathered based on like historical data?
That is gathered by historical data, that's correct. And then using the rates of the new support contract is how that came to be.
Got it. Thank you.
Can't imagine we can get through this quickly, so.
Well, yeah.
Oh, no.
So I just have a clarifying question, Heidi, that you may know the answer to. So adjustments that we'll see based on requests, proposals, things that have kind of evolved throughout either through building administrator presentations or other roles that have been approved throughout the last year that has shifted some of these numbers. Will those come into effect when you do your presentation? Then that's when it'll all kind of shake out?
Absolutely. So what I'll start doing is once we get our 279 numbers in, I'll start to plop everything into my budget. Evan will put it all into the budget. And then we'll look at what our increases are. And then we'll look at new requests. And we'll say, all right, if we're up, we'll just use 10% as a number. We'll say we really want to be at 5%. Then we'll start looking at things that we can remove and maybe substitute, but it's just going to take a little bit more time usually. I think we're a little bit ahead of the game this year for some reason. I feel like we're sooner than we were last year. So we don't have some of the numbers yet.
Yep.
But all the new administrator requests, we'll look at those and we're kind of weeding through and we'll look and see what the actual bottom line number is, and then we'll determine where we're going to go with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And one of the things I think that Holly maybe hit on too was like the discussion of the new HVAC person and facilities and
All part of it.
contracting services
Yeah.
going up there. It's like, okay, that'll be
Yeah. There's
shaped out.
personnel requests and then there's all the other requests, contracts, et cetera. And then different principals and the directors have come in at different numbers. Like I can remember Amy's because she did a good job. It's like less than 3% this year increase on her budget.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh. Can we go back a couple slides to the debt service slide? So there's 91,000 decrease in the debt service. Am I reading that right?
That is correct.
And then if we go to the roll up, the line that's debt service and capital leases. So
Oh, something doesn't seem to be tracking right there.
is there something else included in that line?
I believe that included in this calculation here would be school buses, which would account for roughly
That's-
$600 to
that's-
$7,000.
We need to find it. Okay. It's on the roll up. It's near the bottom of the second page. It's debt service and capital leases. It says the number for proposed 26 will be 6,212,000. So that difference between the 55.4 and you think that's the school bus?
I believe so. Yeah, because that's usually somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000.
Some of that's rolling off.
Yep.
And does your MOE account for any school bus purchases this year, or are you assuming zero purchases?
I'm assuming 3.
Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you.
Which is the general, what they do year over year.
So even with adding 3, we'll have a lower payment for the buses.
I would imagine so.
That's where the difference is, 600,000. Difference between the 6.2 million and the 5.4 million in that line, debt services.
I might have actually budgeted for 4 buses, knowing that we might have to replace one of the mini buses as well.
Uh-huh.
So that could explain the variance. But I'll have to dig into that and get back to you.
Okay, that's perfectly good answer. But those are the 2 things that are in that line.
That's correct. Yep.
This chart and buses.
Yes, based on those object codes, yes, that's what
Okay.
I'm seeing.
Mhm.
Can you walk me through, and again, it's probably, there's an explanation, I'm sure, I have a lack of understanding here, so you can help educate me. Something like the Social Security Medicare line that rolls up 25%, and how that is, so statistically different than the salaries and things. I guess I would have assumed that they went more hand in hand, and I'm just curious how that correlates.
Yeah, let me look at that real quick. So the Social Security and Medicare is a calculation based off of salaries, teachers, ed techs, administrators, all of those salary categories. It is a set amount by the federal government. So once you have your salary calculation, you can take a percentage of that with both Medicare and Social Security, and then that can roll up into a line, which is showing a $174,000 increase based on the salary increases set forth with the new contracts.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at that. I guess I would anticipate that it would be more similar to most of the salaries are around 4 to 5. I know we have that 36% line, so that's pretty significant, and maybe that's enough to drive it.
Could be.
Because the rate really hasn't changed.
Right,
It's just been more the salaries have gone up, and so that's the corresponding adjustment.
correct.
I guess less a question than an observation, but just ballparking these numbers, it does look like, as expected, 75% of this budget is salaries and benefits, be they retirement or insurance or whatever. So if anyone wonders, that's where it's all going.
In my analysis of last year's budget, it was also a similar number.
Yeah. And I think that tracks historically too. So, which is all to say, while we're asking questions here and there's nothing that stands out as outside the norm,
No.
proportionally speaking, at least.
And I should probably know this answer, but I don't. Does paid family medical leave calculate off of the combined compensation and benefits package, or just compensation?
Just compensation.
Okay.
Half a percent to us and half a percent.
Right. So technically, doing like out of all of the salaries and do 0.5% of that. Yeah, that.
Might have to recalculate that based on a missed zero. Yeah, move over
Yeah.
1 decimal. Yep, that's an error on my part.
Well, that number does jump out, 8,000% increase.
So that should be $160,000 instead of 1.6. So there, we just found $1 million, which is great. So my apologies on that one.
No,
Yeah. I don't know if Evan, if you're prepared to sort of do that or not now, it may be worth a quick little bit of work.
Yeah, let me just unshare my screen.
Yeah,
and I'll-
it just may be like, I think that it's gonna adjust that, the current impact that we have on that first slide, or one of the first slides there.
Yep.
From 10% down, I think significantly, and just be leaving here tonight with a,
Well, it's gonna be significant, but it's still not gonna
no,
be
it's still
good.
gonna be a big number. Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
That's-
While you calculate that, I just want to say you did a really good job with a lot of very complicated roll-ups and numbers, and I'm very impressed, and I'm very grateful for your presentation and collection of all this data. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. I have to remind myself, I'm still new to the role and learning a lot, but I'm glad that we could get pretty close to where I think we'll be.
This is my third time on the finance committee, and I feel like I'm just now getting my feet. So don't you worry.
And you're doing a great job summarizing what is really not even your work, right, to this point, where it's other impacts, and you're helping pull it together for us, so.
Ultimately,
you.
yes. Thank you very much for saying that.
Right,
Yep.
Right, one
Yep.
That makes a big difference.
numbers are,
Evan, just to clarify, so the line again for the unemployment cost, that 20,000 that's there for the budget from this year. So it would be 20 plus the like 100 that we just kind of
That's correct.
got
Yep.
it. Okay, thank you.
We pay our unemployment insurance through the Maine School Management Association, and yeah, it's been $20,000 for the past couple of years.
Ryan, I've got a question. And this is just a general question for Heidi. Did any of this surprise you, or is this in line with what you more or less would have expected?
Obviously the salaries, it didn't surprise me.
Yeah.
because the salaries, I knew were gonna be up there, and
Yep, I would agree.
so, but,
Right. Yeah, totally.
so. We'll figure it out.
Oh, I'm not worried. I mean, not more than usual.
Understood.
But I was just curious. I mean, what I would say, speaking for myself, right, is like, generally speaking, this is where I would expect stuff to go with a few line questions here or there, but proportionally, this is all in line with historic precedent, so.
Okay, after changing that paid family medical leave number. Sorry, I put that in the wrong line. I'm gonna have, give me 1 second.
yep.
We put you on
I know, it's so hard to spreadsheet while you're,
We're testing.
Someone's
it's
shoulder.
so hard.
No,
Yeah.
it's good.
I've been doing it for years. It doesn't get easier. So hard.
How's your butt?
Yeah, you didn't bring your little
Yeah.
go-kart.
There.
All right, here we go. Immediate reduction down to 58, just shy of $59 million with that adjustment to the paid family medical leave calculation. If anyone cares to see how I did it, took all the salaries, 0.5%, which gave me $166,847. And I added in the unemployment insurance, which is roughly $20,000 a year, and that rolled up nicely to that number.
So that puts that column I 49 at 7.4 then.
Sorry, what was that?
The column I 49, which is 7.4 versus 10.2.
Correct. Yep.
Yes.
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 And Evan, apologies if you've stated this and I just missed it earlier today, but we're collecting for that fiscal year. When can they start redeeming? Is it the fiscal year or is it the calendar year?
I believe it's April 2026. I could be wrong on
So,
that.
so barely any within the fiscal year that we're looking at.
Correct. And
So
we had to start collecting
Right.
January 1st of this year.
That I remembered. I just remember when so just for the sake of anyone listening, while we're collecting this money for the next budget, we might have to greatly increase our substitution lines if we're covering, we need, depending on what the expectation of the usage of the paid family medical leave might be. It doesn't really affect this budget, but the subsequent budget, right? That makes sense?
In terms of teachers and
Yes.
absences.
Yes, exactly.
They can start taking their time next.
More or
next-
less for the
next
subsequent year. So yeah, anyway, I'm glad we don't have to worry about that as much right now.
And I have one quick question, Heidi. I know we used some of the fund balance last year. That doesn't, and this is for my own clarity again, that doesn't hit any of these specific lines. It went to a warrant line when it rolled up for the approval of the budget?
Reserve line.
Okay.
Yeah, it went to a reserve line and we've not used that at this point. But we won't know what our final fund balance is until our audit comes in.
So even if we decide to use some of it, column I won't change. It's how we pay for column I.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't
And
help,
ki-
it doesn't help us. with
I was making sure
column I.
column I wasn't understated either because of that is what I
Right.
was sort of curious about.
Well, and I guess
Yeah.
it depends on how much we wanted to use, right? If we want to use less than last year, then the hit from column I would be proportionally more.
But what we used is figured into the 54.
No. The 54 was the cost to run the schools. What
Right.
we,
How we
what
paid
we,
for
what
it
we
still.
raised was reduced by whatever we
Right.
used from the fund
That's-
balance. But yes,
think
I go,
we're
we're saying the
saying
same thing.
thing in a different
Sorry,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was so confident when I said no too. I'm so sorry.
It was 54.
Yes.
But the actual impact could be slightly higher
Right.
if you didn't offset
That's a
it by the
different
same
Right,
amount.
it depends, like, how does our offset this year match up to our offset last year?
That-
That'll determine.
That would be a different chart.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, I'm anxiously awaiting February 1st when the state does release that ED 279, which is the calculation that shows what our funding will be for the next fiscal year.
So not to put you on the spot, Jessica, but I know you came in late and, which is great, fine. But it's more just wanted, if there are any questions you have, like you missed something that you're not quite piecing together, please feel comfortable in asking now if you want. Okay. I don't know if we have anything else. Yeah, Howie?
If I understand correctly, health insurance came in around May last year.
Mhm.
It,
Came in
last
after.
year it was the day before we had to vote on our budget.
So the better thing to do, to do is to shoot high, knowing that we can hopefully get lower.
The 14% is the high.
It depends. To answer that until it really comes in, but
And I pressed them too pretty hard, both the property and liability insurance people and the health insurance folks. And they gave me pretty non-committal answers of, we're still months away from figuring that out. Use your best guess. Which was pretty discouraging, but I think so too. I feel confident about the property insurance because the broker did tell me what to use for a figure. And he's hoping it'll come in below that. But the health insurance, they didn't even want to touch my question. Yeah, and I need to look at that again, just to really figure out what that increase is because, yep.
so last year, our maintenance of effort budget also came in at 4.5%. And this year, based on Evan's new calculation, it's coming in at 3.7. So it's on the on the website, underneath all of our business pages, just to give you a comparison of that. So there's the positive in it.
Mm.
Say that again. So when you look at our maintenance of effort budget sheet last year, the one that Evan's presenting where it says budget without debt service and capital leases, we were at 4.5% last
green?
year.
The green? Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Correct. And if you go back to our website, you can find that on there.
Okay.
Actually, wait a minute. Let me just double check one thing. This is last year's, January 23rd, 2024. Yeah,
4.5.
4.5. The numbers are almost identical, except that, so it was about $2,091,004. But the difference was we're at 48 this year, 48,673,095. You can see at the bottom, 48,673.
Three up there, I think that
It
adjustment.
changed now because what we have on here. So we're at 48,301. Last year, that line, we were at a proposed at, just make sure I'm on the right line, 48,673. That was our proposed. Well, it's about $2 million. I don't know, did that, and that changed, 1,718,940. So we're actually going down, but that was because of the couple of lines in there. The debt services are going down, 335, and capital. No, it's not?
No.
Okay. So I wonder why is it going down then?
Spending.
Is that why? I don't know. Haven't studied it enough, obviously. But there's some comparisons there. It could be. Yeah,
We got retirements or something?
there's a, yeah.
You know, 1 year of a contract might be a little lower of an increase than the previous year. I don't remember specifically, but that's always a possibility.
So when we look at this, though, we do have to, we can't spend less than we spent last year unless there's a justified reason. And what that means is because when the special education numbers come in, we're looking at that. And the only justifiable reasons are things like programs, elimination, school closures, decrease in high-cost staff, decrease in high-cost out-of-district placements. Those are all things that are justifiable in the maintenance of effort budget. So if we're coming in low, we have to look at that to see what the reasons are. And there's an explanation that goes along with that.
And you mean specifically as far as justifying the special education grants that are given to the district, correct?
Correct.
Doesn't look
yeah.
like we have to worry.
Nope. So there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Now, I don't know if, I'm sure Heidi's aware, but there's a possible bill for the subsequent year that might increase the state's payment of special education by a factor of 0.5. But we'll see where that lands in the future.
0.5%?
No, like 1.5, 50% of the state's allocation to a special education
would make
student. Yeah, the 55%. Yeah, we'll see if they get there. Sorry, the homeless student was the 1.5. Sorry, the 55% was for the special education. So there's some, yeah.
I did see that.
I'm tapped into the legal stuff this year, so you can ask me questions.
Something's not, I apologize, something's not adding up to me in that line 51. Like in the green box, it's going from 48.3 to 52.7 is not 1.7.
Oh, you're right. Hey. Oops.
Yeah.
It's always harder when someone's watching you do it. I hate it.
Good call.
Okay.
Oh.
Bummer.
That can't.
It's not what we wanted.
Good catch. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Yes.
Hmm.
Exactly right.
Okay. 5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Well, we can't control what the MOE goes up. I mean, it's cost of all these equipment and fees and.
yeah, I mean, our insurance is higher to begin with, and the rate increase is gonna be higher on a bigger number, so that.
We do need it to be either at or above when we're talking about maintenance of effort. We can't really go down on our maintenance of effort.
I can't
and we
imagine that
now
would
are
happen.
not. That's why I was like. You know this answer, but when we're looking at all of our lines, what are givens that there's nothing that we can do about changing? When we look across the lines, there are certain factors that definitely there's nothing that we can change, just so people understand that as well.
I think you can change any of it, really. I guess maybe some of the the Social Security and Medicare calculations would be one thing you can't really change.
Yeah.
But that's driven off of salaries, which not that you can necessarily change them, but you can tweak those numbers based on need. I think anything that's in a collective bargaining contract, you can't really change. So some of those like course reimbursement things that we put into our collective bargaining contracts, those types of things cannot be changed, but pretty much everything else can be.
When we look at contract services, what are the types of services that we're talking about in there?
Contracted services for facilities, for example, those could be our agreements with Train Technologies for the heating and cooling system in this building. It could also include our snowplow contract that we have with Seabreeze Property. For the transportation team, that could be some service contracts they have with various auto companies who can do the work that the mechanics in the garage cannot perform. Contracted services could also be, yeah, I think that's a definition right there. I can elaborate more.
Yeah, no, that's good. So the other thing that we have to think about as we move forward is the 279, which we're hoping will be in by the 1st of February. And in the last year, we worked really hard to make sure that we submitted as many possible economic disadvantage forms and collected those. So we should see quite a significant increase in that line, up to close to, we were at like 400 and something thousand last year. We should be well up into the 900,000s for this year. So that's really important. The other thing that we talked about a little bit is that our enrollment numbers, and with the addition of pre-K that we're hoping to put out into the budget, we'll start to see, because that increases our subsidy as well. And so there are different things that we're doing to try to making sure that our ratios for student to teacher ratios are correct when we submit our staff certification form, because that all makes a difference. So we hope to see that in the next few weeks. And then maybe we'll have a better idea of where our decreases and increases actually can live. Does that make sense?
I guess, again, more of just a thing to point out, something for us to keep in mind. So looking at the change in budget in absolute dollars for our salary lines, comparing that to some of our benefits lines, particularly health insurance and the main retirements line, the change in budget for all of the salaries combined is just about $2 million. The health insurance is more than half of that right off the bat. But proportionally, our health insurance line is less than 50% by quite a bit of what all of our salary lines are. Looking at our retirement line is $500,000 or close enough to, which again is 25% of that $2 million in all salary increases. And proportionally, that $1.27 million is way below any kind of 25% threshold of our salary. So I guess I would just sort of point out to us as a board, as we're thinking about the future, our benefits are increasing way beyond the pace of our salaries. And obviously, I can't forecast, none of us can forecast what 5 years looks like, but if this trend continues, that's very frightening to me. And we have little control over it, but I would just point that out.
I was looking at the same thing, and I guess, can you walk through that 49.6% in retirement again? I didn't, if you spoke to that, I didn't quite follow it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to look at that number because it does seem a little bit high to me as well. But the retirement numbers are driven off of a teacher or an employee's salary. So if they make $100,000, their $4,450 would be contributed towards the retirement line. And teachers and some support staff receive the main PERS, as well as some of the administrators, which is at a higher rate of 12.1%. So that calculation is determined by job class and by how much you make in your salary. But I will definitely look into the 49% increase. When I flagged that one earlier, it didn't pass my test either, and I sat with our accountant for a while to try to figure out those numbers, and we kept running the calculation, and it kept coming back that way. But I will be sure to follow up again.
Okay.
Okay, so for the main paid family leave, are we as school board included in that? Would we take ourselves out of that equation overall? Because we've been doing the math with the top 10, and so the 20,000 we could take out of that, right?
I see the school board as like a stipend, not as a payroll position. So this calculation was driven off of payroll, not like a stipend.
Gotcha,
Yep.
okay. For the main pay,
Paid family medical leave.
yeah. So, sorry, my math is not, I'm not good at math on a good day. So the stipends, would that be included in the main family?
I said that stipend word and I immediately thought to myself, that isn't a good example because you do have to pay paid family medical leave on
That's what I
stipends.
was like, is
but,
it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
but no, I didn't calculate it with the school board. $20,000 included to run that number.
Okay. And then the same thing, I'm assuming like with the additional and overtime, like.
You
that's-
will have to pay paid family medical leave on those.
Gotcha, yeah,
on
okay,
those.
all right, thank you. Sorry to keep belaboring it.
Amy or Jessica, anything else before we move on?
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Evan.
Thank you. I'm excited to continue to work through this process with everyone. And I know that we'll come to a great spot when it's time for us to vote on things.
Yeah, we got more work to do, but we're getting there, so thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda is public comment, which we do have some public here, and I believe I'm going to ask a question on the mic, but based on our discussion last week, is non-committee member comment and question applicable to the public comment portion?
No, I believe you can invite that anytime
At
you
any
want.
point in time? Okay. So, Andy, now we're getting later, if you have anything else you want to add. All right. Yeah. And if we can have you step to the mic and, yeah,
We aren't allowed to answer it.
and we may need to turn the mic on.
Right? I mean, technically, we're not.
My fingers are, Ryan Holmes, Topsom. The maintenance of effort budget that's presented today, am I correct? Did they finally come up with 9.1% was the maintenance of effort budget overall?
7.4% increase.
7.4%.
Once you included the debt service and everything back into it and changes of everything, it was 7.4.
7.4, okay. That number does not include the proposed schools budgets of the principals, does it? Or
No changes made. So we did exactly what we're doing now.
just the maintenance of it? So those proposals are coming up and
Yeah.
those are going to be in addition to this,
Potentially, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Got
Heidi
it.
will bring that forward along with any adjustments or modifications that haven't been represented in this. So there's some things that have happened that are probably on the other side as well.
I'm just refreshing my memory.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
last
totally,
year.
for sure.
That's really what
Yeah,
it
yeah.
comes down to. Awesome. Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was a little bit late.
Better late than never. Yeah. All right. If we don't have anything else this evening, I think we are good to adjourn. We're back here again in a week, I believe, next Tuesday, I think, for, I don't have it in front of me, but it's great. Sounds good. Thank you all. Have a good night.